Should you be looking at joining a ham radio club? What are the benefits and features of a ham radio club? And what do you get out of being in a ham radio club? What do you get by being a part of a ham radio club? I have a new idea to talk about ham radio clubs and give some insight about how to make your ham radio club successful. Let's go. I did a video a while back about mistakes to avoid to make your ham radio club successful, and it was basically taken from a Reddit article that was titled, How to Make Your Ham Radio Club as Unappealing as Possible. There was some good comments on that video. I took some of those to heart, and I'm going to share some of those with you today. And between that video that I made and between the other videos that I made talking about repeaters, activity on repeaters, and how some repeaters are owned by ham radio clubs. And I took some comments from all of those videos about repeaters and about the club itself, and I kind of came up with this plan to do something new that I haven't seen done before. I haven't seen this done before, and I'm going to pitch it to you today and see what you think about it and get some feedback, and maybe it will grow from here. So let's take a look real quick. These are some random comments taken from, they're random comments, but they're comments that really caught my eye. A couple of them are positive, most of them are negative, and that's okay. They're not negative comments towards me or my video, they're negative comments about ham radio clubs. But I think they shed a good light on what we are looking at today in 2024 as far as new ham radio operators and ham radio clubs in the USA, but also across the world. We're going to be talking about some international stuff here too, so this is not just about the USA, so stick around. This comment says, when I first moved here, we had one club in the area that did all these things. He's talking about all these things. He's talking about the list of things that I put in my original video that says your radio club sucks and how to make your ham radio club unappealing. And the author of that original blog post on Reddit listed like 8 or 10 different ideas about how to make your ham radio club unappealing. So he's talking about all these things. A protest club was formed. It was young and dynamic, and all the members had a say and a stake in it. I was elected second president. Protest club. So there's an old joke that goes around that says, if you have 3 ham radio operators in your city, you and 2 other guys, there will be at least 2 ham radio clubs in that same city. Typical. He says, I was elected second president. Well, then one of the old guys, I'm just going to say old guys, from the other club joined. No doubt ejected from there because he was annoying. He was older in the hobby than most of our members. Most were newbie techs in their new club they formed. Well, this old guy started making noise. We need a board of trustees to set the club agenda. What? We can't just have anyone making motions. They should go through a trustee. He says, the commenter says, I was very against this and liked that everyone had an equal voice. I had to fight high tooth and nail to keep the club in the hands of the members. Then I got called away on a long-term assignment for work. I get back a year and a half later and attended a meeting. He'd bulleted his way through. Very few of the old members remained, and it had grown into a clone of the club it had been invented to provide an alternative to. And I replied to him, I said, that's very sad to hear. So, yeah, board of trustees, none of the club, I'm a member of probably 4 or 5 clubs in my local area. Board of trustees doesn't really, they have a board. Most clubs have a board, like a leadership board or like an executive board. But when they vote on things, they let all the club members vote. And the only thing you have to do to be a club member is pay your annual dues. Usually it's like $20 or $25 a person per year. The Hearst Amateur Radio Club that I'm a member of has a $35 per year option for you and your family. It can be you and your spouse or you and your spouse and children, however your family is structured. So I buy that every year for my wife and I. We're members of that club. And we get a vote and a say in what happens with club activities just from being members. There's no trustee involved in that. So I've never heard of such a thing, but I'm sure that it's out there. It was out there for this guy, and he's talking about it. So good. Another comment says, I found a ham radio club in my city that offered testing. I went to one of their monthly meetings. I sat there and listened to a few of the younger members arguing with the older members about how they should invest the dues money they had in the bank. He didn't say how much that was. The younger members suggested that they invest in a base equipment they could use because the younger members could not afford equipment of their own. After about an hour, the younger members all walked out. So much for new blood in the hobby, ? So this is, most of the ham radio clubs that I'm aware of have some sort of club house meeting room or what they call an EOC, Emergency Operations Center, in a fire station, city fire station, or city building, something, and they have a base station radio set up there. A lot of the clubs in this area have a base station radio set up. Club members can go up there. Not everyone has a key to the EOC. You know, it's usually a board of trustee or board members that have keys, some special type of, I mean, they can't just give access to the clubhouse to everybody, especially if it's in a city building. You have to go through city background checks and paperwork to get access to certain areas. So it varies by club, but a lot of them do have a base station set up, a home base station set up with HF and VHF to talk on their local repeater, hopefully. And they'll let you use it if you come up there and you're a club member. So that's not a new thing. That happens in my area quite often, and I think it's a good thing that most clubs should have. This next comment comes from the Why Are the Repeaters Dead video, and he talks about clubs, so I thought it was relevant to this video you're watching right now. Repeaters aren't being used for the same reason that nobody shows up to the local ham clubs except the same grumpy old fat guys who squash every new idea. The sentence is not structured correctly, that's okay. Destroy enthusiasm and own repeaters that they won't permit to be used for nets, won't relinquish the frequency to a more active and enthusiastic group, won't link to other repeaters to expand coverage, and when they die, the frequency gets handed over to another old guy with the same attitude and does the same thing. So we've had a problem with this in Texas. Sometimes repeaters are not, the Texas VHF FM Society is the entity by which you can coordinate repeaters in the state of Texas. So it's a good idea to coordinate your repeater, but it's not 100% necessary. And there are backyard repeater pairs that anybody can use out there. If you have your antenna down at a certain level and your power down at a certain level, you can put up a backyard repeater and use it without coordinating it at all, and you can tell people about it, let them use it, let your neighborhood use it, and that kind of thing. But some of the repeater pairs do get assigned to people whose repeaters fail after a while. They take the repeater down and get rid of it, and they never relinquish the frequency. And I think this needs to be up to the coordination entity, the coordination group, whatever group it is or structure it is by which repeaters are coordinated. They should be doing annual checks of these frequencies to make sure the repeaters are still active and working. And if not, they should just pull the repeater frequencies themselves, say, well, your repeater hadn't been up in 6 months or 12 months or a couple of years. You have this frequency coordinated. You're not using it. We're taking it back. And then you give it to the next person in line. But that's kind of like a topic unto itself, not really what the video is about today. Maybe I'll do another video about that sometime later. This one is a positive comment here. He says, we're trying to reach out to more people outside of our club to get them involved in amateur radio. Situations such as phones not working is the primary reason I got into ham radio. Just passed my extra last weekend. Congrats to you, KI5 in QNJ. So ready to learn even more. Thanks, Jason. Again, he signed KI5QNJ. So congratulations on your extra. Thank you for commenting on the video. This next one says, I used to belong to a club, but it lasted only a year. As a newly ordained amateur ham, I was looking for an Elmo or anyone that was willing to help me as a new ham. From everything I could gather, the club was well run. However, most of the older members felt that if you didn't have a $15,000 ham shack, you shouldn't even bother with amateur radio. One of the members made a crystal radio and an Altoids 10. If you watch Adam's channel, K6ARK Portable Radio, he's done this a bunch, and they're really neat devices that he makes. One of the members made a crystal radio and an Altoids 10, and several guys scoffed and said, what a waste of time. For me, that was reason enough not to attend meetings anymore. So yeah, this would be an example of not a good club. If you are going to laugh at and scoff at inventive ideas, new ideas, and homebrew projects, then you're not really a good ham radio club, in my opinion. This next one says, I've never understood why every new licensee, this is good. This is a good comment. This is an excellent comment. I've never understood why every new licensee doesn't get flooded with welcome packets from area clubs. Love the idea of the weekly hangouts. Wish those were more common. So that would, weekly hangouts is something I mentioned in the video when I said, hey, maybe you should just get on your repeater at 1 o'clock every Wednesday or every weekday, whenever you know, and just say, hey, you guys meet me on the repeater at 1 o'clock today. We're going to have an informal, just everybody get on the repeater, let's talk. And I think that's a good idea, and I'm going to reach out to some clubs. In fact, I'm going to send this email to some local clubs here in the Dallas-Fort Worth, North Texas area when it's done and try to coordinate some things on this end. But this is a good idea to reach out to new members. Now, up until recently, this changed a few years ago. Nowadays, you can actually there are email addresses added to your information on the FCC, what's called the ULS, the Universal Licensing System. I don't know if it's a requirement. It's a requirement to put an address in there, and always has been. I don't know if an email address is a requirement now, or if it's just a new field that you can populate if you want to. But there's a way for clubs to gain access to this list. It's public information, really. Okay, if you don't want your address shared, get a P.O. box. That's what I have. But you can also go on to QRZ.com, and you can find information there. You do have to have a valid amateur radio call sign to create an account on QRZ.com, and then you can log in and look up people's call signs and find out what their email addresses and mailing addresses are from there as well. But again, it's not behind a paywall. It's behind a login wall that you have to have a valid amateur radio call sign to even get access to. So this is a good idea. I've not heard of any of the clubs in my area or elsewhere with a subscription to the FCC ULS to let them see what all new call signs come in this week or this month. Any club out there, if you are able to do that, I highly suggest you take that information, download it, get access to it however that works. Maybe I'll do another video about how to get access to that and what to do with it. Filter it down by city and state for your specific location and start sending out emails or postcards to new members in your area, inviting them to your club. A lot of clubs will give you a free 1-year membership when you first get your ham radio license, or maybe your upgrade, when you first get your general upgrade or your extra upgrade. Sometimes you can get a free membership to that club, so you can go check it out, see what it's all about, meet people, talk to people. And if you don't like it, you haven't paid anything, so you're not out any money. But if you do like it, you can renew the next year and keep going that way. So I think this is a really good idea to get flooded with emails and even postcards, if you still want to get regular snail mail, about new members. It's just a matter of how to get access to the information. That information is out there, and it's been out there for a long time, because I'll tell you right now, when I got my first ham radio license in 1994, 2-3 weeks after getting my license, I got 2 catalogs in the mail. One from AES, Amateur Electronic Supply, they're no longer in business, and one from HRO, Ham Radio Outlet. And this was before the internet. This was right about the time the internet was starting to take off. So I got 2 catalogs in the mail with radio equipment that I could order over the phone or over the catalog, out of the catalog, mail in a check, or call them on the phone. And I'm like, where did they get my information? Oh, it's because I put my address on my ham radio license and they mailed it to me. So companies are doing this. Why can't ham radio clubs do this? This is the last comment I'm going to share before I share the next part of the story. This right here is a very positive comment. So from W4CHD. So thank you for making this comment. When I first got my license here in North Alabama, a member of the Huntsville Amateur Radio Club emailed me. Now, the Huntsville Amateur Radio Club has a big hand in the Huntsville Hamfest that we attend every year in August. They do a lot of stuff in their area for Parks on the Air and for Field Day, Winter Field Day. So if you're in the Huntsville, Alabama area, you should absolutely check out this club. They were the group doing the exams, and you could fill out a piece of paper if you were interested in being contacted. She was a board member, something along the lines of a membership director. She sent an email just giving meeting times and field day plans for that year and many other things. She laid out how the membership worked, and for the first year was free if newly licensed, like I said a minute ago. She closed with letting me know if I needed anything or had any questions to contact her. I exchanged emails with her for days. I ended up talking to her multiple times at club meetings. She was just wonderful. It really meant something to me to have someone warm and inviting that knew the ins and outs of not only the club, but radio in general. Thanks, Anita. LOL, he says. I don't know why he says LOL, but that's good. That's a good comment about a club, about how the club is supposed to work. That's how it's supposed to work. So again, at the beginning of the video, I mentioned a new idea for a new project I had that I want to pitch to you guys and see what you want to do. I'm still working on the back end, and we're going to get to that here in just 1 second. First, let me tell you about, if you are a ham radio club and you are setting up that base station at your club meeting room or EOC that we talked about before, you should be using Mezzi and Ploney coax. You can get a 10% discount on all Mezzi and Ploney coax with the coupon code of HR2 cables at the link I will share in the description below. Mezzi and Ploney is supporting this channel. They're sponsoring this specific video. They have been sponsoring this channel for a couple of years now. Really great quality coax made in Italy. Thank them for supporting the channel if you should happen to use the discount in the link below. But either way, great coax. I highly recommend them, so check out the link in the description below for more information. This is a good story that I just happened upon like last night. I was kind of poking around, making plans to make this video today, and I happened upon this. This is from the BBC News, which is in the UK, United Kingdom, and it is about, the title of it is Amateur Radio Has Changed My Life. And this guy here, Brian Webb, has cerebral palsy and uses a wheelchair. Getting out to meet new people was always something he struggled with for years. This began to change when he joined the Mid-Ulster Amateur Radio Club. Now, I had to look at that twice. I thought it said Mid-Ulster. But Mid-Ulster is in, I just Googled this, Portadown, United Kingdom. So I don't know exactly where that is, but it's in the United Kingdom, so there we go. So I told you at the beginning of the video, we're not just going to talk about the USA today. We're going to talk about ham radio clubs outside of the USA, and this is one. It has made such a difference in my life. I get a thrill over how far away you can talk to people. Just this morning, I was speaking to someone in Brazil, he said. Amateur radio, also known as ham radio, uses designated radio frequencies for the non-commercial exchange of messages. For many, it is a technical hobby that can be done with relatively minimal equipment. That's absolutely true. Davey Gregg from the Mid-Ulster Club said the ability to broadcast from anywhere is what makes it special. You really need very little kit, so you can be at home or out and about. Some people take their golf clubs out. These radios are our pastime. I don't know what he means by that, but okay. It's amazing. It's amazing that with just a radio and a little bit of wire to use for an antenna and some technical know-how, you can talk to anyone all over the world. Absolutely true. Okay, it talks about talking to astronauts here. I'll link this this article in the description below. We have an app that tells us when the space station is flying over. One of our members is tracking it. He took out his handheld out, pulled the call out, and one of the astronauts answered him. He got very lucky. I've been trying for almost 15 years to get the space station, but that's what makes the hobby so special. You never know who's going to answer you. And it talks more about the International Space Station here. Okay. Unlikely connections. This is a cool story right here. The club is filled with stories from its members about unlikely connections they made with their radio sets. This includes assisting in the rescue of an injured motorcyclist hundreds of miles away. I read this story a while back. I can't remember if I actually included it in a video or if I just read about it and hadn't done anything with it yet. Esther Harper and her husband, Ian Evans, were holidaying in Fermanagh with their radio when they received a distress call. We were on top of the mountain. We had our portable set out. The next thing I heard was Mayday, Mayday. I couldn't believe it, said Esther. We'd never heard that before. The first thing I actually thought was that it might have been a ship or something in trouble. The call was in fact coming from another amateur radio user from a rural location in Wales where there was no mobile phone reception. The Welsh amateur radio enthusiast had come across a person who had fallen off a motorbike and was badly injured. Esther said it was quite nerve-wracking. The injured biker was found by someone who had an amateur radio set up in his Jeep, and they put out the call on this radio and found me. I was able to take their coordinates, and I rang 999. I guess that's like 911 in the UK. They got someone in contact with emergency services in Wales. Thankfully, the injured biker received treatment in the hospital and recovered. It's amazing that from a remote location in Wales to a mountain in Northern Ireland. Okay, so that's in Ireland. That's whatever that city name I said a minute ago is in Northern Ireland. We managed to find each other on that day at just a small antenna. So that's another story. I've got several stories on this channel about how amateur radio saves lives. The idea that I had, because I have been getting, now I've been saying in lots of my videos, I've been doing videos on YouTube for 9 years, and there's a lot of comments I get about how people have attended ham radio clubs and felt like they were shunned, unwelcomed, not spoken to, just didn't get a good feeling from trying to attend a ham radio club shortly after they got their license, perhaps while they were even studying for their license, perhaps when they went to a club meeting in order to take a test and they didn't feel like the club was very welcoming, even though they gave them a test. So this has been a common theme in many videos that I have been posting on YouTube. People come by and comment all the time. I have said before, and I'll say many times again, I have never had that issue in the North Texas area. There are a lot of really, really good and welcoming and vibrant and active clubs in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. There are a lot of good and active clubs in the Houston, Texas area. The Houston, Texas and Galveston area for sure. I am not aware of any active clubs in Austin and San Antonio. I know they're down there, but I haven't personally touched any of those clubs, so I'd rather not comment on those quite yet. Midland, Odessa, I know there's a couple of clubs that I've been in contact with in years past. I know there's some good clubs out there. So it doesn't really take a lot of effort to find a good club. Now, those of you who are not in Texas, you're like, well, yeah, but that's not near me. So here's the solution I came up with. I want to create a web page, and by the time this video posts, hopefully I'll have something preliminary set up. I want to create a web page put together by us, the amateur radio community, that lists out clubs that you know for a fact are welcoming, active, and are interested in getting new members. So there's a lot of clubs out there, and you can go to QRZ.com, you can go to FCC, you can go to ARRL's website, and you can look up clubs, and you can get a data dump of clubs all over the planet, all over the USA for sure, but definitely but also all over the planet. You can get that information publicly available if you already have a call sign, publicly available. You can get that information on the internet, but there's no information about how active the club is, whether they still meet, what their meetings are, contact information, if they welcome you or not. So I want to put together a web page. It's going to be a very simple web page, and it's going to be community driven, community submissions. It's going to live by community submissions, and it is going to list out ham radio clubs in the USA. We'll probably do something international soon. I'm going to start with the USA for now. Ham radio clubs in the USA that are welcoming to new members, because I know they're out there. I get a lot of negative comments about clubs and very few positive comments about clubs. That's because no one ever goes to the store and buys a new product and takes it home and uses it and says, hey, this thing is great. They don't put that on the internet. They don't put a review up about how great it is. They don't put a Facebook comment or a Twitter comment about how great it is. But boy, let me tell you something. If you get a lemon of a product or some kind of bad customer service, everybody wants to talk about that. Everybody wants to talk about their bad experiences and post it on social media for the world to see how wronged you were about buying this product and getting ripped off, and how this company has false advertising. Oh my God, we need to call these people out. And I don't necessarily disagree with that stance, depending on what your issue is with the product you just bought. But no one buys a product, takes it home, and says, yeah, this does exactly what it's supposed to do. And they don't put those comments on Facebook or Twitter or the internet or make videos about them, because as humans, we're drawn to negative comments. So I know there's a lot of really good clubs out there, and I want to make a list of them. So I need you guys. I want you guys to email me, clubs@hamradio2.com. Clubs@hamradio2.com. I want you to email me with a club or a few clubs that you personally have attended and know for a fact that are welcoming and active and want to grow their memberships. We're going to grow memberships in ham radio clubs across the USA by doing a community-driven project, which is what we're talking about right now. And I want to know not clubs you've heard of. Oh, my friend or my dad was a member of this club 10 years ago, and he said, well, that's fine, but I want to know what club you are a member of. What club have you attended? And what is your personal... If you have a bad experience, you can email me that too, but we're not going to put that on the website. All the bad experience clubs are not getting listed. We're not getting listed. So if you want to find a club near you eventually, once we get this list built out and built up, it's going to take some time, but this is a community-driven effort. I want to know from you what club you attend that is good, welcoming, active, maybe has a good repeater, has activity on the repeater, does field day, does winter field day, does POTA. What club can you put on this list? Email me, clubs@hamradio2.com. Let's get this list started. Let's get it out there. Let's get it published. Let's get it built up so that we can show everybody that there are good ham radio clubs in this hobby, in this nation, in the USA. And let's get these clubs some new memberships, because they deserve it for being welcoming, and you deserve it because you want to know more information about how to evolve in amateur radio. 73, guys.